Imagine you are sitting in a system design interview and the interviewer looks at you and says design YouTube. What would you do first? Would you start drawing an architecture diagram? Would you start discussing databases? Would you immediately talk about Redis, Kafka or microservices, or would you do something else? Take a second and think about your answer. In fact, write it down in the comments. I am genuinely curious to see how different engineers approach the same problem. And by the end of this video, I want you to come back and see whether your answer changed. Because the framework I am about to show you completely changed the way I approach system design. When I first started learning system design, every problem felt overwhelming. Design Uber, design WhatsApp, design Netflix, design YouTube. Every question looked completely different, and every time I started drawing boxes, I eventually got stuck. Not because I did not know the technologies, but because I did not know where to start. Then I realized something important. Senior engineers are not solving these problems from scratch every time. They are following a framework. And once I learned that framework, system design became dramatically easier. Today, I'll show you that framework, and we will use YouTube as an example. You can see exactly how it works in practice. One of the biggest mistakes I have seen in system design discussions is jumping straight into the architecture. Someone hears design YouTube, and within seconds they are talking about databases, Redis, Kafka, CDNs, and microservices. But here is the thing, architecture is the answer. Before jumping to the answer, we first need to understand the problem. That's why whenever I get any system design question, I follow 5 simple steps. First, clarify requirements. Second, define data and APIs. Third, design the architecture. Fourth, think about scale and reliability. Fifth, discuss trade-offs. That's it. Now let's use this exact framework to design YouTube. The interviewer says design YouTube. Now watch carefully. I am still not drawing a single box because first I need to understand what we are building. One of the biggest mistakes I have seen candidates make is trying to design everything. YouTube contains video uploads, video streaming, recommendations, comments, likes, subscriptions, advertisements, analytics, live streaming, search, and much more. If we try to design all of that in a 40-minute interview, we will fail. So the first skill is scope management. Let's assume the interviewer says focus only on video uploads and video streaming. Perfect. Now let's gather requirements. How many users are we supporting? Let's assume 100 million daily active users. Is this system read heavy or write heavy? Think about it. Videos are uploaded frequently, but videos are watched much more frequently. So this becomes a highly read heavy system. Now let's discuss non-functional requirements. These requirements don't define what the system does. They define how well the system must do it. For example, how quickly should videos start playing? Maybe within a few hundred milliseconds. How available should the platform be? Whether it is 99.9% availability or it is 99.99% availability, right? Can view counts be slightly delayed or must they be updated instantly? These answers influence architecture decisions later. Now notice something interesting. 5 minutes ago we had only 2 words, design YouTube. Now we already know what features we are building, how many users we are serving, the traffic pattern, and the performance expectations. This is why requirement clarification is very important. You should also do a quick capacity estimation, nothing complicated, just rough calculations. Let's assume we have 100 million daily active users. Suppose every user watches 5 videos per day. That's roughly 500 million video views every day. Already we can see this is a massive read heavy system. Now suppose 1 million videos are uploaded every day and each video is around 100 MB. That's roughly 100 terabytes of new video data every day. And remember, YouTube stores multiple versions of the same video. So storage requirements become huge very quickly. The goal here is not mathematical accuracy. The goal is understanding the scale of the problem. Now let's think about the core entities: users, videos, comments, subscriptions, likes. For simplicity, we will focus on videos. A video might contain video ID, title, description, uploader ID, timestamp, thumbnail URL, video location, view count, right? Now let's define some APIs. For example, upload video, get video, search videos, get recommended videos. At this point, the interviewer may ask, which database would you choose? For video metadata, we need a database that can store and query information like video ID, title, uploader ID, upload time, thumbnail URL, and video location, right? So this could be a relational database or a distributed NoSQL database depending on scale and access patterns. The important point is actual video files should not go inside the database. They should go into object storage like S3. See how the decision is becoming obvious now. We understood the requirements first. Once we did that, choosing the right technology became much easier. Now we can finally start drawing boxes. A user opens YouTube. The request reaches a load balancer. The load balancer distributes traffic across multiple application servers. The application servers contain the business logic. Video metadata lives inside a database. Simple, right? Now let's think about video uploads. Suppose I upload a 4K video. Should users directly stream that raw file? Probably not. Different devices require different formats and resolution. A mobile user may need a format of 480p or 720p, right? A users on a smart TV may want 4K videos. A user on slower network may need a lower bitrate version. So after upload, we need transcoding. But transcoding is expensive. We don't want users waiting, right? So instead of processing immediately, we push a job into a queue. Background workers consume the job and generate multiple versions of the video, right? So these processed videos are then stored in distributed object storage. Now we introduce asynchronous processing because of a requirement, not because we wanted to put Kafka on the diagram. That's a very important distinction. Now let's continue. Suppose a user in Delhi watches a video and another user in Brazil watches the same video. Should both users fetch the video from a single server? Of course not. Latency would be terrible. And this is exactly why CDNs exist. Content delivery networks keep copies of videos closer to users' location, right? Now users stream from nearby locations instead of a central server. Playback becomes significantly faster after introducing this CDN layer. Now let's think in terms of scale. Every scalable system eventually reaches a point where something starts breaking. The question is not if something breaks, the question is what breaks first. For YouTube, one obvious candidate is the database. Millions of users constantly request metadata. So how do we reduce database load? So we can introduce caching, right? Popular video metadata can be stored in Redis. Now many requests never reach the database. Another bottleneck is video delivery. This is where CDNs become critical. What if a transcoding worker crashes? We need retries. What if a server goes down? We need redundancy. What if traffic doubles overnight? We need horizontal scaling. Production systems fail all the time. We should design for failure. Now we reach the final step, trade-offs. And this is where system design is very important. Caching improves performance, but data can become stale. Replication improves availability but increases complexity. Asynchronous processing improves responsiveness but introduce eventual consistency. CDNs improve latency but increase infrastructure cost. There is no perfect architecture, only trade-offs. And your job as an engineer is to choose the right trade-offs based on business requirement. Before we wrap up, I want to clarify something. YouTube is significantly more complex than what we discussed today. We did not cover a lot of things like recommendation systems, advertisement delivery, analytics pipeline, live streaming, search infrastructure, right? Content moderation, or many other components. And that's intentional, because the goal of this video was not to completely design YouTube. The goal was to learn a framework. So, what was the biggest takeaway? The secret was not Redis, right? The secret was not Kafka. The secret was not databases. The secret was not CDNs. The secret was having a framework. Because when someone says design YouTube, you are no longer staring at a blank page. You know exactly what to do next. Clarify requirements, define data, design architecture, think about scale, discuss trade-offs. Once you internalize this process, system design becomes much easier. Not because the problems become simpler, but because your thinking becomes structured. And that's exactly how senior engineers approach system design. If you found this helpful, let me know in the comments and tell me what was the first thing you would have done when I asked you to design YouTube. And more importantly, did your answer change after watching this video?